Think you know Louis XIV? The radiant Sun King who turned Versailles into a glittering wonderland of mirrors and fountains? Buckle up, because the real Louis XIV was so much fouler and far more paranoid than any perfume-soaked tourist guide will dare confess. A monarch who feared his own digestion so intensely that doctors tracked each bubble of gas as if it were a comet. A hypochondriac who believed foul air could kill faster than an assassin's dagger. A ruler whispered to have bottled his very wind in jars, sealing it away like cursed treasure. Welcome to the stomach-churning side of absolute power, where velvet smells of sweat, rosewater mingles with rot, and every royal trump might rewrite foreign policy. These are the truths that will make Versailles reek in your imagination long after the chandeliers fade. Versailles dazzled the eye, but it assaulted the nose. Marble corridors doubled as latrines, chamber pots sloshed beneath brocade skirts, and only 3 privies served thousands of courtiers. Contemporary diarists complained of stench that clung to draperies like smoke, while gardeners dragged crates of orange trees indoors to mask the funk. Louis XIV pretended not to notice, but in private, he panicked. Since childhood, he'd been taught humoral medicine. Bad smells carried bad vapors, and bad vapors bred deadly illnesses. The king's personal nightmare was that a stray whiff could topple the Bourbon dynasty faster than any army. So he weaponized scent. Court etiquette required nobles to crowd him after meals, forcing rivals to breathe whatever floated from his person. If a duke flinched, Louis marked him as weak. If a marquise pinched her fan too sharply, an estate in Provence might vanish overnight. Odor became another lever of absolutism, and everyone learned to smile while suffocating. Enter Guy-Crescent Fagon, chief physician, and reluctant wind-scribe. Each morning he approached the royal bedside armed with quill and sandshaker, ready to chronicle the latest grumbles from His Majesty's bowels. The entries filled an enormous journal de santé, 58 years of pulse counts, urine hues, stool textures, and yes, movements of the wind. A single cramp could halt a cabinet meeting. A prolonged rumble might delay a declaration of war. When foreign ambassadors puzzled over sudden schedule changes, insiders muttered, "The king's thundercloud has not yet broken." Fagon's most dreaded duty was the midnight consultation. Louis, unable to sleep, would summon him to listen to the belly. The doctor knelt, ear pressed against silk, while chamberlains held candles aloft like acolytes at a grotesque mass. If Fagon reported harmony, the king drifted back to dreams. Discordant gurgles meant emergency purges, cascades of rhubarb syrup, bleedings behind embroidered screens, or steamy enemas laced with mallows and honey. Nothing was too extreme if it promised a quiet gut. Somewhere between medical zeal and superstition lies the legend of Louis XIV's most infamous prescription, the fart jar. According to gossip, apothecaries produce delicate crystal flasks, thin-necked and stoppered with wax, into which the king was encouraged to deposit his vapors. Once sealed, the specimen joined shelves of bezoar stones and powdered unicorn horn, a fragrant archive of royal health. Sound absurd? Not in 17th century Europe. Physicians terrified of plague embraced counter-miasma cures. Patients were told to trap their own wind, then sniff it later to ward off infected air. The practice appears in several medical handbooks of the 1600s and popped up from London to Vienna. If commoners were bottling their behinds, imagine the prestige of a monarch's personal bouquet. No official receipt lists flatulence, jarred 3 ounces, yet Versailles thrummed with rumor. Servants swore they saw footmen ferrying glass cylinders wrapped like reliquaries. Court wags nicknamed one cupboard l'armoire des vents. Whether true or not, the story endures because it fits the era's grotesque logic. When you believe bad smells can kill, why not fight back with the most powerful stink on earth? Louis XIV's obsession peaked after 1686 when an agonizing anal fistula threatened to end his reign. Surgeons carved into royal flesh while choirs sang a Te Deum outside the operating chamber. Recovery was slow and humiliating. Every ride, every bow, every step risked ripping the wound open. From then on, the king monitored his intestines like a general patrols a frontier. An unexpected gust could signal infection, rupture, or the dreaded return of the fistula. Court life adjusted. Dinners were timed around operations. Musicians struck up lullabies while enemas were administered behind tapestries. Carpet were strewn with dried lavender to smother whiffs that might embarrass the crown. Versailles even banned certain bean stews in winter. Too risky, Fagon warned. Yet for all precautions, the Sun King's body rebelled. At masquerades, guests reported sudden silences broken by regal eruptions. Ladies fainted theatrically. Gentlemen coughed into lace. The king blamed overripe fruit, then Spanish wine, then heretical thoughts. None dared propose the simplest answer. A human being gorging on rich sauces 3 times a day will inevitably blow. When Louis XIV finally died in 1715, spectators noted the paradox. The realm had been ruled for 72 years by a man terrified of odors, yet his palace remained Europe's most infamous cesspool. Toilets were so scarce that visitors relieved themselves under the grand staircase. Maids hurled chamber pot contents into ornamental ponds. A visiting Bavarian prince called Versailles an enchanted sewer, dazzling and obscene. As for the rumored jars, they vanished, perhaps smashed by embarrassed heirs, perhaps auctioned as curiosity, perhaps still corked in a forgotten cellar, waiting to unleash 3-century-old royal thunder. Modern historians debate their existence, but the metaphor lingers. Absolutism is a fragile perfume, easily overwhelmed by the simple democratic smell of the human body. So the next time you glide through the hall of mirrors, remember that beneath your feet once seeped rivers of waste, and above your head, chandeliers glittered while a king fretted over his guts. Versailles was not merely a theater of power. It was a laboratory of paranoia, where every whiff could crown a favorite or condemn a foe. If this peek behind the perfumed curtain made you wrinkle your nose and question everything high school taught you about the grandeur of the Sun King, hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into history's darkest, smelliest corners. Trust me, we've only just uncorked the first jar.